The courtroom buzzed with anticipation. The prosecution was confident, the defense looked weak, and the judge was ready to move things along. This was supposed to be an easy conviction, a routine case of a criminal finally facing justice. At the defendant's table sat Janelle Carter, a composed black woman in her late 30s, her expression unreadable. The arresting officers, Detective Ray Connors and Officer Luke Simmons, sat smirking in the front row. They had built their case carefully, planting just enough evidence to ensure Janelle would go away for a long time. Their story? She had been caught red-handed with a large shipment of narcotics in her car. Her fingerprints were on the packages, and there was enough surveillance footage to make it impossible for her to deny. Open and shut, Janelle, however, was oddly calm. No panic, no pleading. Just silence. As if she was waiting for something, the judge, an older man with a no-nonsense demeanor, cleared his throat. Miss Carter, you are being charged with drug possession with intent to distribute. How do you plead? Janelle finally looked up, her sharp eyes meeting the judge's. Not guilty, Your Honor. The prosecution attorney scoffed. Your Honor, the evidence against Miss Carter is overwhelming. We request no bail and an immediate hearing. The judge nodded. Very well. We will proceed with the case. Detective Connors and Officer Simmons exchanged satisfied glances. They had done it. Another win. What they didn't know, what no one in that courtroom knew, was that Janelle Carter wasn't just some woman caught up in the wrong crowd. She was a decorated DEA agent. And she was about to turn the entire case upside down. Janelle sat confidently at the defense table, her lawyer, Mark Davidson, flipping through a stack of documents. The prosecution was already presenting its case, laying out the so-called evidence piece by piece. Detective Ray Connors took the stand first, adjusting his tie as he spoke. We received a tip about a woman transporting a large amount of narcotics. When we pulled over the defendant's vehicle, we found multiple kilos of uncut cocaine in the trunk. Did she resist arrest? The prosecutor asked. No, she cooperated. Almost, too easily, Connors said with a smirk. Like she knew she'd been caught. Janelle gave a small smile. She let them talk, let them build their story. She had been waiting for this moment. The prosecutor continued. And were the drugs tested for fingerprints? Officer Luke Simmons answered this time. Yes, sir. Her fingerprints were on the plastic wrapping. Janelle glanced at her lawyer, who gave her a slight nod. Everything was going exactly as planned. Finally, the judge turned to the defense. Mr. Davidson, do you have any questions for the officers? Davidson stood up. Yes, Your Honor. Detective Connors, how long have you been on the force? 15 years. And in that time, have you ever made an arrest where the suspect's fingerprints were so conveniently placed on neatly wrapped drug packages? Connors shifted in his seat. Well, it happens. Right. And where exactly did you receive this tip about my client? A confidential informant, Connors replied. Davidson nodded. I see. And did you verify this informant's credibility before acting on their tip? Connors hesitated. Well, we've worked with them before. Janelle smiled again. The cracks were beginning to show. The courtroom remained silent as Janelle watched Detective Connors squirm under her lawyer's questioning. She had been in enough trials to know when someone was bluffing, and these officers were lying through their teeth. Davidson paced in front of the witness stand. Detective, let's go back to the evidence. You claim the drugs were in my client's trunk, correct? Yes, Connors replied, shifting in his seat. Davidson nodded. And Officer Simmons, you testified that her fingerprints were found on the packaging? Correct, Simmons confirmed. Davidson smirked. Then explain something to me. He walked to the defense table and lifted a sealed forensic report. This is the official DEA analysis of the evidence. It was filed just yesterday. And according to this document. He flipped the pages dramatically before reading aloud. No usable prints were found on the drug packages, the courtroom murmured. The prosecutor's face turned pale. Simmons blinked. That's impossible. Is it? Davidson raised an eyebrow. Because it's funny, my client requested this independent analysis immediately after she was arrested. It seems to contradict your official report. Care to explain? Connors clenched his jaw. I don't know what kind of stunt you're pulling, but Davidson cut him off. No stunt, detective. Just facts. Either you're mistaken, or someone tampered with evidence. He turned to the judge. Your Honor, I move to dismiss all charges based on clear misconduct. The judge frowned. This is serious. We'll take a recess while I review this new evidence. Janelle leaned back in her chair, her expression unreadable. They weren't ready for what came next. The courtroom remained tense as the judge left to review the forensic report. Janelle sat calmly, watching the so-called evidence against her crumble. She had seen corruption before, but these officers were about to learn that they had framed the wrong woman. Detective Connors and Officer Simmons whispered furiously at the prosecution table. Janelle could see the panic in their eyes. They hadn't expected her defense team to expose them so quickly. Davidson leaned toward her. They're nervous, he whispered. Which means there's more to uncover. Janelle smirked. Oh, there definitely is. A few minutes later, the judge returned, his expression unreadable. He looked directly at the prosecutor. Mr. Langley, this forensic report raises serious concerns. Do you have an explanation? Langley cleared his throat. Your Honor, the prosecution was not aware of any inconsistencies. Davidson interrupted. And yet, the DEA was. He turned to the courtroom and raised another document. Your Honor, my client works for the DEA. She had the foresight to request an independent analysis, knowing something wasn't right. Gasps filled the room. The jury exchanged shocked glances. The judge turned to Janelle. You work for the DEA? Janelle finally spoke. Yes, Your Honor. Special Agent Janelle Carter. And I have every reason to believe these officers planted that evidence to frame me. Connors shot up from his seat. She's lying. She's just trying to get out of this. Davidson folded his arms. Is she? Or is this exactly why you targeted her? The judge's face darkened. Enough. We need answers, now. Janelle locked eyes with Connors. He was unraveling, and she wasn't done yet. Officer Simmons fidgeted in his seat, sweat forming on his brow. Detective Connors, usually composed, clenched his jaw. They were losing control of the narrative, and they knew it. Judge Wallace adjusted his glasses and looked at the prosecutor. Mr. Langley, I'm giving you one chance to explain how your case against Special Agent Carter relies on tainted forensic evidence. Langley swallowed hard. Your Honor, we were given this evidence by the officers on the scene. We had no reason to doubt their integrity. Janelle scoffed. No reason to doubt? You mean, other than the fact that the drugs were found in my locked car, which no one had access to but me? The courtroom murmured. Davidson took the floor. Your Honor, we have security footage from the impound lot where my client's car was taken. It clearly shows Officer Simmons entering the lot after hours. Would you like to see the footage? Simmons shot out of his seat. That doesn't prove anything. Janelle smirked. He had already said too much. Davidson pressed play on a monitor as the courtroom watched the footage. Simmons could be seen looking around nervously before unlocking Janelle's car and placing something inside. Judge Wallace's expression hardened. Officer Simmons, do you care to explain? Simmons' mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Connors grabbed his arm. Say nothing, he hissed under his breath. But it was too late. Janelle leaned back in her chair. Your Honor, it's clear these officers conspired to frame me. And I have a feeling we've only scratched the surface of their corruption. The judge sighed, rubbing his temple. We're going to need a full investigation. The tide had turned, but Janelle wasn't done yet. The courtroom buzzed with tension. Officer Simmons' face was pale, and Detective Connors looked ready to explode. They were trapped, and they knew it. Judge Wallace tapped his gavel. Order. Officer Simmons, you've been caught on video tampering with evidence. Do you have anything to say before I make a decision on how to proceed? Simmons stammered. I was just planting drugs. Janelle interjected, arms crossed. Her confidence was unwavering now. Just like you've probably done to countless innocent people before me? Simmons shot her a glare, but his silence was damning. Davidson turned to the judge. Your Honor, this is more than just misconduct. This is a criminal act. Simmons, and possibly others, should be arrested for falsifying evidence, abuse of power, and obstruction of justice. The judge sighed. I don't disagree, but we'll need to conduct a formal review before making arrests. He then turned to the prosecutor, Langley. Mr. Langley, do you still wish to pursue charges against Special Agent Carter? Langley wiped his forehead with a handkerchief. He had no case left, and he knew it. No, Your Honor. The prosecution moves to dismiss all charges. A triumphant murmur spread through the courtroom. But Janelle wasn't celebrating yet. She locked eyes with Connors. He was the mastermind. And he wasn't sweating like Simmons. Not so fast, she said, standing up. We need to talk about Detective Connors. He's the one who ordered this setup, isn't he, Simmons? Simmons flinched. Connors clenched his fists. This is nonsense, he growled. You have no proof. Annel's smirk deepened. Maybe not yet. But you'd be surprised how quickly corrupt men turn on each other when the walls start closing in. And the walls were closing in, fast. The courtroom fell silent. All eyes were on Simmons, who sat rigidly in his chair. His face twitched, his jaw clenched, and a single bead of sweat trailed down his temple. Janelle had him cornered. You think Connors won't throw you under the bus? She pressed, stepping closer. He's your superior, but you were the one caught red-handed. When this case unravels, you'll be the first to take the fall. Unless, she let the word hang in the air. Simmons swallowed hard. Unless what? Unless you tell the truth, Davidson interjected, folding his arms. Come clean about the setup, about Connors, about everything. Connors let out a low chuckle. This is ridiculous, he scoffed. Simmons, don't listen to this nonsense. They have nothing. Janelle turned to the judge. Your Honor, I request that Officer Simmons be placed under oath, right now. Judge Wallace studied her for a long moment before nodding. Officer Simmons, step forward. Simmons hesitated. His eyes darted toward Connors, then Langley, then the two uniformed officers stationed by the door. He was trapped. With slow, shaky movements, he stood and approached the witness stand. The bailiff administered the oath, and Simmons took a deep breath. Did you plant those drugs in Agent Carter's car? Simmons' lips trembled. He opened his mouth, hesitated, then finally exhaled. Yes, he admitted. The courtroom erupted into chaos. Gasps filled the air, reporters scribbled furiously, and Connor's face turned a deep shade of red. You idiot, Connor spat under his breath, but Simmons wasn't done. His hands trembled, but his voice grew steadier. And I didn't do it alone. Janelle leaned forward. Who ordered you to do it? Simmons hesitated again. Then, with a resigned sigh, he turned toward Connors. Detective Connors, he said. He planned the whole thing. The first domino had fallen. And the rest were about to follow. The courtroom was in an uproar. Gasps, whispers, and murmurs of disbelief rippled through the crowd. Detective Connors shot up from his seat, his face contorted in rage. "This is outrageous," he bellowed. "You're taking the word of a coward." Judge Wallace slammed his gavel. "Sit down, Detective Connors." Simmons wiped sweat from his brow, his hands shaking as he gripped the edges of the witness stand. His betrayal of Connors had shattered the silence, but there was more to reveal. Janelle took a step forward, her expression firm. "Officer Simmons, we need the truth. How deep does this go?" Simmons hesitated. His eyes darted to Connors, then to Langley. "It's bigger than you think," he admitted, voice barely above a whisper. Connors gave the order, but Langley was in on it too. They needed a fall guy, someone who wouldn't fight back. "And they thought that would be me," Janelle said coolly, her arms crossed. Simmons nodded. "We were told you were just a regular civilian. A nobody." Langley made sure the evidence would stick: fake witnesses, false reports. Everything was planned. Langley's face turned ghostly pale. "That's a lie," he protested. Janelle smirked. "Then you won't mind if we pull up your bank records?" She turned to Davidson, who had already pulled out a folder. "A large deposit showed up in your account 2 weeks before my arrest. From an offshore account." The color drained from Langley's face. Connors gritted his teeth. "You don't have proof that money's connected to this." Janelle stepped closer. "Don't we?" She nodded to the back of the courtroom. The doors swung open, and 2 men in suits strode in. "Agent Morales, FBI," the first man announced, flashing his badge. "We've been listening." Connor's smugness melted away. Langley swallowed hard. Simmons looked like he might pass out. "You all just walked into a federal investigation," Morales continued. "And I'd say Officer Simmons just became a key witness." Janelle smiled. The trap had been set, and now, the corrupt officers had nowhere to run. The tension in the courtroom was suffocating. The moment the FBI agents stepped in, the weight of their presence sent a chill through the corrupt officers. Janelle folded her arms, watching as the once arrogant Connors and Langley squirmed in their seats. Judge Wallace leaned forward. "Agent Morales, what exactly is the FBI's involvement in this case?" Morales pulled out a thick folder and handed it to the judge. "We've been investigating a ring of corrupt officers framing innocent people for months. Connors and Langley are just 2 of many involved in this operation." A ripple of shock spread through the courtroom. Langley slammed his fist on the table. "This is ridiculous. You can't pin this on us." Janelle raised an eyebrow. "Really? Because we just did." She turned to Simmons. "And Officer Simmons here has been very helpful." Simmons hung his head, avoiding the burning glares of his former colleagues. I just couldn't keep lying," he muttered. Judge Wallace skimmed through the file, his expression darkening. He set it down with a heavy sigh. "Detective Connors, Officer Langley, based on this new evidence, I'm ordering your immediate detention pending further investigation." Gasps echoed as 2 uniformed officers stepped forward to handcuff the disgraced detectives. "This is a joke," Connors barked. "We've been framed." Janelle chuckled. "How does it feel?" Langley shot her a venomous glare. "You won't get away with this." Janelle leaned in, her voice steady. "I already have." As the corrupt cops were led away, Janelle turned to Morales. "What happens now?" Morales nodded. "We dismantle the rest of their network. And as for you, Special Agent Dawson, I believe your name is officially cleared." Janelle exhaled, feeling a weight lift from her shoulders. The battle wasn't over yet, but justice had taken its first step. As Connors and Langley were dragged out of the courtroom, the weight of their downfall settled over everyone. Reporters outside had already caught wind of the scandal, and the courthouse was surrounded by flashing cameras and shouting journalists. Janelle stood tall, her confidence unwavering. For months, she had been hunted, falsely accused, and forced to fight against a corrupt system. Now, she was finally vindicated. Judge Wallace turned his attention back to her. "Agent Dawson, on behalf of this court, I extend my apologies for the injustice you faced. Your name is officially cleared, and your record is expunged immediately." Janelle nodded respectfully. "Thank you, Your Honor. But my fight isn't over. There are more officers involved in this corruption, and I plan to make sure they face justice." Morales smirked. "That's why the DEA and FBI are working together." Connors and Langley were just the tip of the iceberg. Outside the courtroom, reporters swarmed Janelle as she stepped into the sunlight. Microphones and cameras were shoved in her direction. "Agent Dawson, how does it feel to take down corrupt cops? Do you have anything to say to the officers who framed you?" Janelle took a deep breath. "This wasn't just about me. This was about a system that allows corruption to thrive. But the people who abuse their power will always be exposed." She looked straight into the camera. "To every officer who thinks they can get away with corruption, your time is coming." As she walked away, she felt a sense of closure, but also a new beginning. She wasn't just a DEA agent anymore. She was a symbol of justice, and she had no plans of stopping anytime soon. If you were hooked by Janelle's fight for justice, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories like this. What do you think about corrupt cops getting exposed? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and remember, truth always wins. Stay tuned for our next story.